In the face of common enemies, strange alliances often emerge. The one between Churchill and Stalin, two leaders with contrasting ideologies, is no exception. Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, and Joseph Stalin, the Soviet leader, were two figures who couldn't have been more different. Churchill hailed from a democratic society where the rule of law, personal freedoms, and political pluralism were the guiding principles. He was a man of words, a master orator, and a statesman who believed in the power of diplomacy and negotiation. On the other hand, Stalin represented a totalitarian regime where the state held absolute power. His leadership was marked by an iron fist, with little room for dissent or deviation from the party line. Stalin's rule was characterized by economic centralization, political repression, and widespread surveillance. These ideological differences were vast, almost insurmountable. And yet, the geopolitical landscape of the early 1940s was such that it necessitated an alliance between these two contrasting figures. The world was in the throes of the Second World War. The Axis powers, led by Nazi Germany, were on the offensive, expanding their territories across Europe and beyond. In the West, Britain stood as the last bastion of resistance against the Nazi onslaught. In the East, the Soviet Union was gearing up for a potentially catastrophic confrontation. It was clear that neither Britain nor the Soviet Union could confront the Axis powers alone. The situation demanded a united front, an alliance of convenience despite the ideological chasms. Churchill, the pragmatic realist, understood this. He recognized the imperative of cooperation in the face of a common enemy. And so, in spite of his reservations about Stalin and the Soviet system, he reached out to the Soviet leader, setting the stage for one of history's most unlikely alliances. Despite their ideological disparities, the necessity of a united front against the Axis powers led to an unlikely alliance. An alliance that would shape the course of the war and in many ways the post-war world. But that, dear listeners, is a story for another time. The first significant interaction between Churchill and Stalin was in August 1942, a meeting that would set the tone for their future relationship. In the throbbing heart of World War II, the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill made a daring journey to Moscow to meet the Soviet leader, Joseph Stalin. The two men, coming from starkly different ideological backgrounds, were thrown together by the necessity of the times. It was a parley of pragmatism over principles, a nod to the realpolitik of the era. At this first meeting, Churchill and Stalin spent many hours together, talking, negotiating, and trying to understand each other. Despite their differences, the two leaders found common ground in their shared determination to defeat the Axis powers. This was not a meeting of minds, but a meeting of needs. Churchill, the eloquent Democrat, found a way to communicate and negotiate with Stalin, the ruthless communist dictator, setting aside their ideological disparities for the greater good. The key points of their agreement were simple yet profound. They agreed to share military intelligence, to coordinate their army's movements, and most importantly, to stand together against the common enemy. Churchill, in a show of diplomatic dexterity, also managed to secure Stalin's promise not to seek separate peace with Germany, a critical assurance that solidified the Allies' united front. Despite the tensions and the inherent distrust, a mutual understanding was reached. Churchill and Stalin, two leaders with contrasting visions of the world, had found a way to work together. They acknowledged the necessity of their alliance, recognizing that their survival depended on each other. The ideological chasm between them was bridged by the common purpose of defeating the Axis powers. This meeting was a turning point, marking the beginning of a strategic alliance between two ideologically opposed leaders. It was a testament to Churchill's diplomatic acumen and Stalin's pragmatic approach. It was a pact formed in the crucible of war, an unlikely alliance that would shape the course of history. This was the Churchill-Stalin Parley of 1942, a meeting that showcased the power of cooperation over conflict, even in the face of deep-seated ideological differences. The alliance between Churchill and Stalin was not without its challenges, but Churchill's diplomatic finesse played a crucial role in maintaining it. To fully appreciate the complexity of this alliance, one must understand the vast ideological chasm that separated these two leaders. Churchill, a staunch capitalist, found himself navigating an alliance with Stalin, the embodiment of communism. Yet the urgency of the situation, a common enemy in the Axis powers, demanded that they set aside their differences. Navigating this alliance was akin to a high-stakes chess game for Churchill. He had to carefully balance his own nation's interests with the need to keep Stalin, a powerful and unpredictable ally, on side. The stakes were high. Any misstep could fracture the alliance and jeopardize the war effort. One of the major challenges Churchill faced was ensuring that Stalin felt respected and valued within the alliance. Stalin was notoriously sensitive to perceived slights and was known to hold grudges. Churchill had to tread carefully, taking care to ensure that any agreements or negotiations did not appear to be undermining the Soviet Union's contributions to the war effort. Churchill's diplomatic skills were put to the test in these negotiations. He had a knack for rhetoric and persuasion, often using humor and wit to diffuse tense situations. He also understood the importance of flattery in diplomacy, frequently praising Stalin's leadership and the bravery of the Soviet people. Another challenge was managing the information flow between the Allies. Churchill understood the importance of transparency and trust in maintaining the alliance. He went to great lengths to keep Stalin informed about the war's progress, even when the news was not positive. Despite these challenges, Churchill's diplomatic skills ensured the alliance held, maintaining a united front against the common enemy. His ability to navigate this delicate alliance was a testament to his leadership and diplomatic acumen. It's a fascinating chapter in history that illustrates how even the most unlikely of allies can come together when faced with a common threat. The Churchill-Stalin alliance had far-reaching implications, significantly influencing the outcome of World War II. The impact of this unlikely camaraderie between two leaders, who were so ideologically different, was indeed profound. The alliance was a strategic move, one that showcased the art of diplomacy at its finest. Churchill, the staunch anti-communist, saw the necessity of this alliance with Stalin, the communist stalwart. The goal was singular: to defeat the common enemy, the Axis powers. Their united front was pivotal in turning the tide of the war. The alliance led to a pooling of resources, both human and material, bolstering the strength of the Allied powers. Their combined forces, which extended from the icy wastelands of Russia to the bustling cities of Britain, presented a formidable front against the Axis powers. The might of the Soviet Red Army and the resilience of the British forces working in tandem proved to be a game-changer. The strategic decisions made during this alliance significantly influenced the course of the war. The Second Front, as it was called, was a product of their collaboration. It served to divide the forces of the Axis powers, stretching their resources thin and causing a shift in the momentum of the war. This tactic dealt a crushing blow to the Axis powers, hastening their defeat. But the impact of the Churchill-Stalin alliance extended beyond the battlefield. It set the stage for the geopolitical landscape of the post-war era. It laid the groundwork for the United Nations, paving the way for international cooperation and peacekeeping efforts. It also ushered in an era of Cold War politics, highlighting the delicate balance between power and ideology. In essence, the alliance between Churchill and Stalin was more than a temporary wartime necessity. It was a testament to the power of diplomacy, the importance of mutual respect amidst differences, and the strength of unity in the face of adversity. The alliance, although unlikely, played a significant role in shaping the course of history. Looking back, the alliance between Churchill and Stalin, despite their ideological disparities, is a testament to the power of unity in the face of adversity. Let's recap. While the world was embroiled in the throes of the Second World War, two distinct leaders, Winston Churchill and Joseph Stalin, found common ground. Their ideologies were as disparate as night and day, with Churchill championing the cause of liberal democracy and Stalin firmly rooted in communism. Yet they were able to put aside their differences, understanding the weight of the global crisis at hand and the indispensable need for cooperation. Their alliance was not without its challenges, of course. Like navigating a ship through a storm, Churchill masterfully managed the delicate alliance. The negotiations were tense, the stakes high, and the future uncertain. But Churchill, with his astute political acumen, held the rudder steady, ensuring that the alliance did not capsize under the pressure of ideological divergence. The impact of this alliance was monumental. United, they formed a formidable front against the Axis powers. Their combined strength helped turn the tide of the war, leading to the eventual defeat of the Axis powers. It was a pivotal moment in history, showing the world that unity, even in the face of ideological differences, can lead to victory. The Churchill-Stalin alliance, however, was not just about winning a war. It was about demonstrating to the world that unity can be achieved even amongst the most unlikely of allies. It was a lesson in diplomacy, resilience, and the power of compromise. The alliance was a beacon of hope in a world torn apart by war. It was a message to future generations that even when our beliefs diverge, when faced with a common enemy, we can and must find a way to stand together. In a world often divided by ideologies, the Churchill-Stalin alliance serves as a reminder of how unity can be achieved even amongst the most unlikely of allies.